Good evening and welcome. I'm June Michaels, representing the League of Women Voters of Cape Ann. The League is pleased to bring you a debate between the 7 candidates for 5 Councillor-at-Large seats. Four, sorry about that. 4, that makes it even more exciting. The League is a nonpartisan organization for women and men which encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. One way we do this is by presenting candidates directly to you, the voters, in a fair and equal format. We hope that over the course of this program you will learn more about each candidate and what they hope to do for the city. And now I'd like to introduce the candidates in alphabetical order. Please stand. Peter Kanavu is a Wentworth grad with a degree in construction management and a union bricklayer. Gloucester born and raised, Peter is interested in helping the community. His love for his hometown has called him to run for city council. Joe Ciolino has been on the city council for 13 years, serving as president in 2016 and 17. He owns a downtown store and is director of the Gloucester Merchant Association. Melissa Cox has spent 8 years on the council, 6 on the Budget and Finance Committee, 2 on Planning and Development. She is married and works in town for a local contractor. She enjoys volunteering in the community, working on environmental projects, helping residents navigate the complex city laws. Jennifer Holmgren is a registered nurse with over 20 years' experience in the health and human services field. She is an incumbent city councillor, a Gloucester school parent, and lifelong community volunteer and activist. John McCarthy is a lifelong resident of Gloucester, married with 2 grown children. He retired last April from a 40-year career with the Gloucester Police Department. He is running for office because he wishes to stay involved with and give back to the community he loves. Jamie O'Hara, who has served 2 terms on the council, is a lifelong Gloucester resident and owner of O'Hara Industrial Services, which employs 5 Gloucester citizens. He is a past president and current board member of the Magnolia Library and Community Center and a proud volunteer at Pathways for Children. Krista Carranza is a former director of communications and constituent services for Mayor Romeo Thekin and managed the Gloucester Green campaign and other citywide forums. Previously, he was Director of Communications for NEPBA, the largest police union in New England. He serves on Discover Gloucester and the Gloucester 400 Board and has recently been appointed by the Massachusetts Comptroller to lead a joint task force to introduce new software to improve public accountability and transparency. It's very exciting to have so many people interested in serving the city. I want to commend all of you for running. I will be asking 7 questions prepared by the League of Women Voters, on which 3 candidates will each have 2 minutes to respond. Then I will open up the question to the other 4 candidates to briefly agree, disagree, or add an idea not previously mentioned. Every candidate will have the opportunity to speak first, second, and third on a question. Also 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Every candidate will have a chance to speak on every question and to make additional comments at the moderator's discretion. But please do not comment on a question posed earlier. Stay on the subject of the specific question. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. So, question number 1 is about the schools, and we're going to start with Mr. Ciolino, Ms. Holmgren, and Mr. O'Hara. The city will be moving forward to combine the East Gloucester and Veteran Elementary Schools into a new 440-student elementary school on Mattis Field at the Veteran School site. What is the most important thing you want voters to understand as the final design for the school is created and the debt exclusion is presented to them as a ballot question? Mr. Ciolino?
Thank you for that question. It's on everybody's mind. Just a couple of things. The parents of Gloucester years ago have stated that they want neighborhood schools. I know at one time the idea was put out that to do a magnet school, which would have been like 2,000 kids in one school, which was crazy. So here we are, we're going to combine two schools. But the interesting dynamics of combining these two schools is that if you look at where the children live, that a lot of the children that go to the East Gloucester Elementary School actually live closer to the veteran school. So that's going to end up being a true neighborhood school. Well, the older children can walk to school. The older parents can be readily available to get to the school. Everybody in the city of Gloucester is going to have a bite of the apple on voting for the school to move forward. After the final designs, come through, we're going to decide how it's going to be paid for. And what will probably happen will be something called a debt exclusion. And a debt exclusion is something that's a type of an override, but the override dies in like 20 years. It has a sunset clause. A lot of times when you do an override, it goes on forever and ever, as long as God is God. But this is like putting a mortgage on the building and then paying it off. And so the voters are all going to get involved in this, and they're going to have a choice of what they want to do. I support the school. I think that now that we've done the West Parish School, that's the gold standard for the schools in the city, and I think all the other schools should match it. And then eventually we're going to have to work our way up to Lanesville and start looking at the Beaman School also. Thank you.
Jen Holmgren.
Well, thank you very much. I am happy to talk about the school situation, and it has been a huge challenge for everyone in this community, whether you have a child in the school system or not. We are all taxpayers. We are all invested in making sure our schools are good for our children. And unfortunately, all across the state, all across the country, money is tight. And the school building committee had a difficult decision to make, and they made it. So we're going to have a combined school. I would like the voters to really understand that, yes, a debt exclusion is temporary. It'll be 20 years, 25 years long. And if you remember, back to the late 90s, we voted the Poles Hill debt exclusion in. So we as a community decided that we would take just a small portion of our taxes every year to pay for preserving Poles Hill on Wheeler's Point. If we can preserve a piece of beautiful landscape for our community, we can invest in our children's future and in the value of our teachers. I want to make sure that our teachers are valued by giving them a building that they are proud to teach in. I want to make sure that our children know that they can have what we have over in West Gloucester. My daughter is a West Parish student. I'm proud to send her to school every day. My husband and I are both very proud, and I want the same thing for all of the children of Gloucester. I will also say, if we vote this down, there's going to be a delay. We're going to have to start from scratch. We are not going to be able to afford to build a new school, and that'll delay the building of schools in Riverdale and Lanesville as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am a huge advocate of having the finest education for the students of our city. With that said, the school buildings are important. But we all know how tight money is. They're projecting $80 million for this school. You can look at some, I like Peter, being in construction, you can look at what the dredging of the Annisquam River came in for bids. And this is typical. Contractors are straight out right now. I'm a contractor. And unfortunately, when contractors are very busy, the prices typically reflect that, supply and demand. So I would dare say that by the time this school is built, we're probably looking at 90 million, if not more. A lot of money. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Whether we're getting money back from the state, a third of that, if that, we all have to be cognizant of the dollars and cents that this is going to add to your tax bill. Now, with that said, We need to educate our students. We need to have facilities. So I think in parallel, we need to look at what the options are should the debt exclusion not pass. Thank you very much.
I'm going to ask Melissa and then Krista Carranza to comment 1 minute each.
Thank you. I would just like to add that with the school making their decision, that it's up to each and every one of us to get educated on what a debt exclusion is and how it's going to affect you. I would hope that during the time that we have prior to the ballot question, that there will be several meetings held to so people can sit down with someone and look at what their house is and look how this is going to affect you. A $400,000 house, you're looking at $125 a year at the rate that the school came in at. So yes, it might change, it might fluctuate, but it's going to be very similar. But the key is to educate yourself on what this means.
And Chris?
Hi. So kind of to echo what Councillor Cox just said there, that's a big part of what I talk about across the different ways that we work together through community outreach and through honest dialogue. And that's through accountable different sources that we can look at. And I think along the way through the MSBA process and looking at the East Gloucester Building Project page, there's a lot more online tools. I think we need to have a lot more tools for our seniors to understand what's at stake. As Melissa and both Joe said about understanding what a tax exclusion is and understanding how that all works and how it's going to play out. But we're talking about our kids. We're talking about our future. I'm talking about my future kids and nieces and nephews. And we want the best quality for them. We don't want panels falling on their head. We don't want to hear about that. And we all know the realities of budgets, and that is also true. But this is why we have to have an honest conversation using honest sources, and the MSBA and community development and the schools, they're all committed to putting out that kind of information. And I think, to echo Councillor Cox, we got to just continue with those conversations.
So part of understanding that we need new schools is budgeting. We need to exercise different avenues where we can generate more money, and other places we can look at is green energy. It would help us pay back and save on energy costs, and that's a big part of it that can help us save with what we're trying to do here. Forecasting is everything, so when this ballot passes, we really need to understand where we're at financially, and I think I can be a great asset to that, seeing that my construction background is where I do every day in a lifestyle of construction. Thank you.
I too think that our children deserve everything that we can give them as far as a high-tech school, the best learning environment that they can have. Several questions have been brought up to me from both sides, and one is whether we would support a special election. My answer to that is no. I would rather see this time framed so that it either hits our next November's citywide election or the primary election. My reason for that is that it gets more voters out, it's not a specialty election, and it gets a better understanding of what the citizens of Gloucester want. So that's my opinion on that.
Would anyone like to very briefly add something that has not been mentioned?
I don't think your mic's on, June.
Oops.
Ms. Michaels, can you speak louder, please?
Sorry about that. My mic was off. I'm going to let the candidates very briefly add something that has not been mentioned, but this was covered by the Gloucester Daily Times sponsored debate, which also will be aired by 1623 Studios. You want to add something?
Thank you. I just want to add that Gloucester has a history of missing the boat, literally. We have an opportunity here when we were building the school to get back from the state 55%, 52%, whatever it is. And that's a hell of a deal. Whatever the cost is, it's going to be, we're just going to be paying half. And the important part of it is this, is that after the school is built, the city cuts a check. then the state cuts a check. So our debt service is going to be half, not the whole thing. When we did the high school, it took 20 years for the city to pay, the state to pay the city for what we did at the high school. And by the time we finished it, we had to do remodeling. Remember that. We can't let these opportunities for money to come into our city. We all pay state taxes. We need to take advantage of it, and our children need the advantage to have a new school. Thank you.
I'm going to go on to the next question, which is on housing. Sorry about that. Am I still on? Good. The first person to answer will be Melissa Cox, followed by John McCarthy, and then Carranza. What would you do to foster the development of housing that is affordable to the full range of Gloucester residents, including those at 30%, 50%, and 80% of the area median income? Please be detailed in your response and include what efforts you would make to preserve existing affordable housing stock and set expiration conditions for new affordable development to ensure that the city can maintain long-term affordability. Melissa Cox?
I think the question took longer to ask than I'll be able to answer it. That was very complex. Let's
You
see.
should have seen the first version of the question.
How would I foster development? It's one of the things that I asked when I was on P&D is I would like an inventory of the city-owned property that is buildable and non-buildable. Start there. Look at the buildable property. What can we do with it? Is it big enough for housing? Is it big enough for a complex? It's our own land. Let's make it affordable. Another thing is partnering with the right people. Harbor Light Partners, CDC, Action. We need to partner with our neighborhood community partners that know how to do this. They are the expertise in being a landlord. We are not. I know there's another part to that question.
Well, what can you do to preserve the existing housing that is affordable?
So just recently in front of me at Budget and Finance, there was a house that was deeded affordable, but it was going through foreclosure. The bank and Harbor Light Partners partnered together to preserve it. If it would have went into foreclosure, we would have lost that affordable house. This way, it's deed restricted again in perpetuity to be affordable housing. So again, we need to partner with those people that know how to do this.
John?
I agree that it's become a very large problem in the city, affordable housing. I want to compliment Action for their Cameron's project that they have coming. They have 30 units, I believe, coming, and they're maintaining the 30% to 60% affordability. Not so much with the Fuller project, that's an 80% affordability, which is a big difference. It's somewhere around $90,000 medium income that you'd have to make to afford that. I think we ought to be able to look at zoning in this city as far as being allowed to convert from singles to twos with a matter of right. Some of the zoning we enacted when we put the West Gloucester sewer system in may have to be looked at now so people can carve off pieces of land for their family. I think we're battling Airbnbs. I think we're battling condominium conversions. But I do applaud what's been done. The YMCA building, I believe, is going to be 53 affordable units. And most of those affordable units are deed restricted. So that will preserve the affordability going forward. Thank you.
So affordable housing is definitely a crisis that we're hearing across the greater Boston region. And to echo what John McCarthy just said, if you don't know, Gloucester is lumped into the Boston market itself. So that means we kind of artificially have to rise up with that. But what is affordable, right? And so I think we've heard before that people call it attainable housing. And the thing is, we have an aging population. And so part of the question there was, how can we preserve the fabric of our rich heritage and our history here? And one of the ways that we have to do it is through a little bit of ingenuity. I think we have a lot of single-family homes with seniors in them that can be changed into multi-families, and that's certainly what my family did, to make sure that we have an income for my mother-in-law that I see in the audience. Hi. And so I have some quick facts, though, from housing.ma. The average household size is going to continue to decrease year over year until to the marker of 2030 by a margin of 2.05%. Family households with children make up 23% of Gloucester currently, but this is just going to keep decreasing over time. So part of the conversation has to be, how do we welcome in new families? How do we make it sustainable for them to be living here? And working with people, not just, of course, Action and Cameron's with Mickey Northcutt and the North Shore CDC, but places like RCG, who in Salem and Beverly have a lot of mixed-use spaces. And I know that there is the Gilman and Gardner report that I think Councillor Hecht is trying to kick back up again from 1995. There's a lot of different tools that we have to use, but it takes a whole community to talk about it. But we have to welcome people in and make sure that we have solutions that works for everybody. And the Affordable Housing Trust is certainly a tool that we have to harness in the right way to make sure it's not just about building more houses. We saw that with Espressos, I think. It's making sure that it complements the fabric of our community.
Thank you. The next two candidates who will have just 1 minute each to add or agree or disagree. We'll start with Peter Kanavu and then Jen Holmgren. Peter?
I definitely agree that we need affordable housing. Part of it is, though, we have to develop responsibly. We have to look at our community and our neighbors and see what we're trying to build in their backyard. And we need to work with them because East Gloucester failed over there, and I can understand why. So as long as we listen to the people and understand what they really want and work together with them, I think we can collaborate and build these affordable houses that we need for the next generation to want to live here and continue raising their families here. Thank you.
I am on the ad hoc committee to examine affordability of assisted living residences in Gloucester. And I am also on the Housing Production Plan Implementation Committee. And I have been an affordable housing activist along with several people in this audience since before I was elected, and I am proud of my work on that. I want to say what hasn't yet been said is that we need to do a lot more community education and outreach than we've been doing. And we are a municipality. We do a lot of work in a lot of different areas, and we're spread pretty thin. But people don't understand that we attain local control over affordable housing stock when we reach 10% affordable housing stock. Right now, we're at 7.4%. And every time a project like Cameron's is approved, that's great. That's a step toward not only more affordable and attainable housing for people who live here, but also it's a step in the right direction for local control. So, thank you.
The last two candidates to speak on this question will be Joe Ciolino and Jamie O'Hara.
Just I want to talk about the definition about what housing is. We know we're talking about affordable housing. There's really like three categories. One is subsidized housing, affordable housing, and workforce housing. And what we're talking about here is affordable housing. I think we as a city have to make it welcoming. There's going to be a project across the street, and we as a city have to do all we can to make that happen. And whoever the partner would be, whether it be Harbor Light or whatever, we need to have a little partnership to get things done. And we're talking about the schools. East Gloucester Elementary School, what a wonderful place to put housing in there. These spots are available, and we as a city need to put the housing into this affordable workforce housing. One of the last public hearings I had as a city council president was about affordable housing at the Fuller School. There are so many people that are in such need in this city. It's staggering. And I think we, as politicians, we need to make it happen.
Thank you. A lot has been said pertaining to this question. I have a little bit different take, because we've said a lot and we're being repetitious. We need to bring businesses into Gloucester, jobs, good paying jobs, so people can afford real estate and to live on the island in Gloucester. The market, obviously, we can't control what someone wants to sell their house for or rent an apartment for. I spoke to a constituent today, and he wants to get his permit so he can have a legal apartment and achieve a higher rent. Again, for someone to afford it, they need to have a good job. We need to have people working in our city. We need to bring manufacturing into our city. We can't lose sight of people working and businesses that will create those jobs. Thank you.
This question was also on the Monday night forum, so I'm going to go on to question 3, which is also an infrastructure question. We've talked about the new elementary school, the Fuller site, and other affordable housing construction projects that are in the works. At the Monday night forum, several candidates said that the time was not yet ripe to create one fire, police, public safety building. So the question is, what is the next most pressing infrastructure need that the city needs to address? I'm going to start with 2 minutes each for Chris Carranza, Peter Kanavu, and Jen Holmgren. So Chris? Can you repeat the last part of that? What is the most pressing infrastructure problem the city needs to address?
So, outside of the obvious capital needs that I think we're talking about with longer-term vision, it's the bread and butter stuff too. I think that a lot of people that I've been chatting with are talking about the potholes, the integrity of our streets, talking about the betterment program, the private roads and the public with, the private roads with the public access. And I applaud Councillor Ciolino for the betterment program that he's been really trying to spearhead in Magnolia, making sure that the neighbors can work together to do that. But more importantly, we need to have more, again, you're hearing a common theme, more consensus, more awareness around the fact that some roads are private. And that means also, by the way, the city won't be plowing you. And if we keep having our roads decline, people won't be getting an ambulance to them safely. So we have to have these conversations about this is potentially a safety risk. And I think more importantly, when we talk about the fabric of our community, if we can't get from place to place, whether that's public transportation, which we also desperately need, it's mostly by car, then we do have to talk about smart growth and smart movement, and how we could potentially go back to some ideas around water shuttles, bike lanes, the e-scooters. If we don't have these conversations now, though, whether you like them or not, people can come into town and dictate the rules, as it's happening, unfortunately, in Salem with Mayor Kim Driscoll. So I think it's just the bread and butter, everyday issues around the DPW, especially the roads, the actual integrity of the roads themselves.
Yeah, we need to look at our infrastructure. We definitely need to look at our sidewalks, roads, but we also need to look at our waterfront. Just the other day I was over there, and I'm telling you right now, you got fenced off areas because the pilings and the whole waterfront just falling in the water. It's sad. It's sad to see. It's dangerous for people. These are things that we need to understand that are going to affect people that work on the waterfront, such as the fishermen and other maritime use. So as far as building into our infrastructure, that's also going to allow better business growth, better business consumers. People will want to travel further downtown and stay longer. You know, we need to understand that our parking situation is a little bit of a mess downtown. We need to really exercise some better ideas and what we can do to have people want to stay downtown longer. That way the businesses prosper and our tax revenue prosper, and then we can reinvest that money into other things like schools and our kids. And I mean, that's the basic plan. Let's not oversimplify this. So I think those are important things that we need to pay attention to, and there are also other grants out there that we can apply for, and we need to be aggressive towards them. So thank you.
I would like to focus on infrastructure as being very, very important, just as affordable housing is important. When my husband and I bought our house 5 years ago, we realized that cosmetic improvements are nothing without doing things like making sure the furnace is functioning, making sure that there are retaining walls built if necessary. And that needs to be prioritized all over the city. I commend Councillor Nolan, as Mr. Carranza does, that we have finally a more streamlined betterment process so that people can install better water mains. They can make sure that their private roads are paved and the potholes are filled. I want to say, yes, I agree. Our waterfront should also be preserved. Some of that funding is unfortunately tied up in the state, and we do need to seek grant money to help with that, both in the DPA and out. But we need to look at the entire city and prioritize sewer infrastructure, water pump infrastructure, especially in the face of climate change. And I'm happy to say that the City Council has funded those types of projects to make sure that we are protected from 100-year floods, et cetera. And I will continue to work to make sure that our infrastructure is shored up not only for today, build not for today, but for tomorrow as well. Thank you.
The next two candidates, who will each have 1 minute to respond, are Joe Ciolino and Jamie O'Hara.
The city has a huge obligation in its future, and that obligation is a secondary treatment plant. We are on a waiver, from the federal government, and at some point in time, they're going to come down on us and say, okay, you got to build a secondary treatment plant. And we cannot afford a secondary treatment plant, especially if we're building a new school. So that's something that I think we need to deal with. We can't do a plan A, but maybe we can come up with plan B and say, at the present time, our system is working terrific. The samples of the water that comes out of the outfall is pretty good, and probably better than coming out of a secondary plant. But we need to settle that. And if we're going to move forward, we need to know what's going to happen. Do we need to build a secondary plant? Hopefully we don't. I'd rather see that money being invested in the new Beaman School, and that's where for the future of our children.
Thank you. Again, everything ties into dollars and cents and tax dollars. The debt that the city is in is tremendous. We owe a lot of money. So we have to be cognizant of every dollar we spend and the dollars that are being spent and where they're being spent. I think everyone agrees. No one wants to see higher taxes, water and sewer rates. The fees that everyone pays, they're not happy with. So as a city council, you need to have a representative who's going to stand up for you and watch those dollars. We look at our roads. Everyone needs to pass. Our roads are atrocious. We also, the private roads, we're dealing with issues that we don't have answers to. People live on private roads. Most of the roads that we live or people travel on are private roads for public use. We can't get straight answers. As a city council, we're trying to protect the people who are paying their taxes, but they live on the private road that are in deplorable shape, that we can't get emergency vehicles. Emergency vehicles are getting stuck, so we need to be cognizant of that. Thank you.
And we'll finish with John McCarthy and Melissa Cox.
I agree with what everyone has said. They're all important infrastructure things that we have to do. However, we have a lot of public buildings now. We can't repeat the mistakes that we've done for the last 50 years. We have to maintain the buildings we have. We can't end up with Fuller School falling into disrepair and having to be sold and turned down. We need to put money into the buildings we have right now. I know a study has been done by the city last year, what needs to be improved in our public buildings, and we need to get that done, because if the foundations fall apart, the buildings fall apart. So we need to make a commitment to maintain what we have. And then what everybody else said.
So I agree, secondary water treatment plant, climate change needs, DPW facility. What you don't know is that DPW and community development have been going after thousands, millions of dollars in grants for the city for these needs. We have put so much money into water treatment. That is why we have the waiver. And if you think that other communities are not having these same problems, you're wrong. So I know there's been a lot of doom and gloom up here, but if you think you're going to move to another community that doesn't have these kind of debt problems, you're wrong. But in my opinion, from serving on budget and finance, we are tackling them in the right priority. We have the right department heads, and we have the right people looking out for our well-being. So if there are any complaints about it, come see me. I'll introduce you to the department head, and we'll go through and we'll talk about it.
Would anyone like to add yet another infrastructure project to the list? Jen?
I'll say we do have answers. We have answers all over our city website. You have city councilors that you can call or email at any time. You may not like the answers. I certainly don't like some of them, but they are there. They are available. We need to move forward together as a community. And it is very hard. These times are hard for a lot of us. But I don't ascribe to the idea that everything is shrouded in mystery and that we are covering things up and things are unclear. They're very clear. The truth hurts, but I would rather be able to communicate to a constituent, yes, unfortunately, you're gonna have to have a neighborhood meeting so that you can all apply for a sewer betterment. And if that's something that you need to do, I will try to help you alongside your ward counselor to get that done, so that way ambulances can go down your road. But I have absolute faith in everyone I've worked with in the city. Thank you.
So just to kind of continue on with that thread from Councillor Holmgren, you know, communications and understanding across, again, all the different generations, that's going to be key to our success. And I think the members within our DPW, within our community development, economic development, I think they need more modern resources, more modern tools to better understand how we can go for grants. It's my understanding that there are different tools out there that we can utilize to better put us in a position to get some of these grants. And whether you're talking about coastal resiliency, so we don't have a repeat of the Gloucester High School flooding situation, all the way through to looking at things that the administration frankly handles. Like there's a lawsuit with, I believe, the town of Essex that's still ongoing with the water and sewer. So it's, again, understanding all the different unique things that are in the mix there, prioritizing it, getting the feedback, and communicating back to the public what the expectations are. You don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. You have to have honest conversations, but there are also other ways through the building inspector's office, through the IT department, to get revenue. So we're talking about spending money. How about we make some money?
Please stop reading everything on Facebook and believing it's true. All of these gray hairs are from reading mistruths on Facebook. Again, please reach out to a city councilor and get the appropriate answer and share them with your neighborhood. Share good information, right information, even if it's not the information you want to hear. It's better than spreading miscommunication. Please, my hair asks you to seriously stop reading everything on Facebook.
I want to leave you with a positive note. We talk about debt, but we also pay off debt. I think last year or this year was the last payment on Poles Hill. The high school is paid for. So there's a whole list of things that this city has paid for. You know, we only hear about the new debt, but we do pay off the old debt. And there is a ratio from debt to what our earnings are, and that's what we try to keep. So things aren't dire. We know we pay our taxes, and we go forward and we pay off. And that's how the city has worked for years and years. But as we keep that balance, so don't panic in saying that we keep on layering. We don't. we do pay off on the other end also. So it'd be interesting to get a sheet to find out exactly what loans were paid off for this year and last year and all the rest of it. Thank you.
Question number 4 is a budget question. There has to be a budget question. My experience is that there are always weak spots in a municipal budget. Departments and services which are chronically under budgeted, maybe because they're largely unseen by the public, or they have no ardent constituency to clamor for more money. I'd like the candidates to identify what they think some of the mushy spots in the budget are, and what the next term of the City Council is going to do about it. The first 3 with 2 minutes each will be John McCarthy, Jamie O'Hara, and Joe Ciolino. John?
Everybody knows I'm going to say the police department, right? I have the unique qualifications to have been up to City Hall fighting for more money in our budget every year. I think you're going to find that every department head in the city is going to tell you they need more money in their budgets. I think you just heard everybody say that our roads need more repairs. I believe the last time I looked, there was only a $30,000 line item for pothole repairs. Let me tell you, you drive over some of the city streets, you want to give money to fix them yourself. That being said, I think our DPW does a great job with the limited amount of money they're given to repair these streets. Tourism, trying to attract new business. I think those budgets under economic development should be boosted. I'm sure we're going to have a question on our harbor at some point, but we need to utilize our harbor more. We need to spend some money to bring people in. We need to send people out, and I'm sure we've done that. I know we're at the trade shows in Boston, but we need to maybe even start small, going out and recruiting tourism. We need to, I can remember there was a boat that came here from Boston called the Virginia Sea. It came in every day, tied up at Rocky Neck, brought 150 people in. They stayed the day. That's the kind of thing we need. We need to have our tourism bureau. I believe it's mostly volunteer now. Maybe we could fund a mushy spot in the budget, as you put it, someone to go out and recruit this type of economy. I got the stop sign.
Thank you. It's all about money. Residences, bringing more homes into Gloucester. A home in Gloucester, a residence costs the city money. We make money on businesses. We need to bring businesses into our city. Many businesses. We need to maintain our stock of businesses that we have, and that includes the businesses that are here and everything that affects those businesses. One of them, obviously, water and sewer, but transportation is huge. The problem with 128 is a state issue, but it's impacting every business on Cape Ann. Gorton's, everything that they produce comes in on a truck and goes out on a truck. Many of us probably know the traffic congestion on 128 from 62 to Lowell Street and obviously beyond to the Cloverleaf is unbelievable. This is costing the city and businesses millions, obviously the constituents that have to sit in that traffic, millions and millions of dollars every year. As a counselor, I see Ali Pett, I've spoken to Senator Tarr and Margaret, trying to bring a summit to figure out how we can cure this problem of transportation into our city. We need to create businesses. Businesses make the city money, and that's what we need to focus on. Thank you very much.
I served many a year on budget and finance, and a lot of people don't understand that the majority of the finances, probably around 80%, are all contractual obligations. And what I mean by that is the teachers' contracts, the unions and the DPW contracts and all the rest of the contracts. So you don't really have a lot of money to play with. That the majority of that money is already spoken for through the contracts. But what you do have, the budgets that we have now from when I first started, it's pared down to the bone. It really is. It's tight. I think that the administration goes through these things line item by line item as the city council does to see where you can cut. And there is not a lot of big cash that you can find in there. So the magic that makes things work is something that we call transfers, where you can transfer one account for whatever the reason has more money in it than it needs to an account that's depleted. And in budget and finance, you see transfers every week from one account that's healthier to another account that's not. It's very difficult, to chop the budget. Where do you cut? Do you cut the schools? Do you cut the police? Do you cut the fire? They're down to the bare bones. And so you have to be very, very careful. We're a big city, and we have a huge budget, but a lot of it, again, goes to the schools, goes to the union contracts, whether it be the teachers, whether it be the DPW employees, the police, and the fire. That's where the majority of that. But let me tell you this, every counselor up here that's been up at City Hall, we watch every nickel, we go over every line item, and if there's a place that we can save it, we try to do it. Thank you.
The next two candidates to have 1 minute to add a new mushy spot in the budget or agree or disagree with the previous three speakers will be Jen Holmgren, followed by Peter Kanavu.
Okay, so after a few years of looking at the budget as a counselor and as a citizen, I can tell you with absolute certainty the mushiest spot and the place where I would put as much money as I could possibly throw at it if I had my druthers would be in animal control enforcement. We have two absolutely fabulous, dedicated animal control officers. And I'll share a personal anecdote. We had a skunk in our basement a few months ago, and I absolutely freaked out. I called the animal control officer because I had no idea what to do. Jamie Eastman came, looked at the perimeter of the house, found the problem, and figured out how we could plug the hole until we could find help. And this is something he did in the middle of his extremely busy morning, dealing with dogs, plovers, dead deer in the road, God knows what else. They are the sweetest people in the world. They are underpaid, they are overworked, and they need more help. Thank you.
So I think what we need to do is basically generate more money from business. That's what we need to do. We need to focus downtown and see how we can get more growth down there. That's going to help with the weak spots. And I spoke with some of the local business owners down there, and they want to create some type of committee for downtown. In other words, when you have the block parties and other events that go down there, they want to stimulate that business growth. And by doing that is hiring better entertainers, more entertainers, people that want to stick around. We have some wonderful entertainment downtown during those busy times of the season, but if we can hire, people that want to come down and see and spend time, and that would allow them to stay down there more and want to spend more money, and I think that'll help with a little bit of that money growth that we're looking for.
With Melissa and Krista Carranza.
This is right up my alley as Chair of Budget and Finance. I would have paid for that 2-minute spot. Where I would allocate money in this order: DPW, police, school. How would I get more money? We already allocate $100,000 for tourism. What we want to do is not inundate the city with tourism and have a bad rate of return. We don't want people to come here and have a bad experience, because those bad experiences tell 10 people. The good experiences, unfortunately, only tell 4. So we need to find that balance. We need to bring people in. I do agree with John on that, but we also have to find the balance. The other one is bigger businesses. We need to fill our industrial parks. Those are the businesses that are going to employ more people and the businesses that are going to produce more money to tax. So that's how I would do that.
So one of the things that I've seen when I was in the mayor's office was that I thought was a big success actually was focusing on recognizing and developing your talent internally. And so I think I don't hear anyone tonight talking about HR itself and the training and how do we retain top talent. We have lost a lot of top talent, unfortunately, whether it was from the union contracts or because there wasn't developmental programs. There was no path for them to go forward. And so we want to make sure that we have the top talent staying here, but that also means empowering them with the tools to be successful. So whether you're talking about combining with other communities to have forums, partnering with academic institutions, there should be other sorts of shared services that we can offset our $110+ million budget, but also to get better public input along the way too, digitally in the real world and getting the word out about that. But all around, economic development I think needs more support, and I think it needs more manpower, frankly, behind the scenes to get it done.
One more mushy spot to discuss.
The mushy spot is hospitality. I think every money, all the money that we spend on that, comes back into the city and it multiplies. I'm just going to use one example, the Beauport Hotel. When that came in, it pays room tax, it pays meals tax, it pays excise tax, it pays water bills, it pays sewer bills, it pays real estate tax. That's the kind of businesses that we want. And then for services, they hardly get anything from the city. We don't do anything like that. So, whether hospitality, whether it be in Gloucester Crossing, there are no TIFs up there. They pay their taxes the way, the way everybody else does. You and I do. So these are the opportunities that we have, and these are the opportunities that we have to work with. And the one thing about the visitor economy, people, the artists, the galleries, it goes on. It puts a lot of people to work, and those are the people also that pay taxes.
I'll get it yet by the end of the debate. Question 5 is about raising money. Gloucester has become the first community on Cape Ann. Right. Yeah, why not?
You want mine?
I think it's on now, Jane.
Serves me right for complaining about the microphone. It'll get me. Zap. Question 5 is about raising money. Gloucester has become the first community on Cape Ann to adopt a new tax on short-term rentals, such as Airbnb. The revenue from this 3% surcharge is earmarked for affordable housing initiatives. I'd like each candidate to mention a specific affordable housing initiative that this could be spent on, and also mention what undesirable outcomes might this tax produce. The first 3 will be Jen Holmgren, Melissa Cox, and Peter Kanavu.
Thank you. Well, I am glad that this 3% community impact fee, not a tax, but a fee, is going to be applied to affordable housing. How we got there was a bit contested. I got some feedback from a vacation rental company who's been in the business for about 30 years now, since before there was Airbnb, since before there was the internet. So we had a talk about that at a city council meeting a few weeks ago, and I'm glad we did. And I am grateful for the outcome. I guess we have so many initiatives that I'd like us to put forward. Certainly, as has been said, working with organizations like Action, Harbor-like community partners to identify maybe blighted properties and to build either a full 40B project or a partially, like a mixed-use project would be great to spend that community impact fee on. I would like to see there be more enforcement as well. Our health department is pretty overtaxed as it is with regard to examining exactly where these rental properties are, who is running them, and how to make sure that they are running them fairly and in accordance with the law. A lot of people are still ignorant of that, so it's a huge amount of community education as well. Thank you.
Okay. Again, the 3% is not a tax, it's a fee. And with the 5.7 state tax and the 6% city tax, that is 11.7%, plus the 3% is 14.7. There is a lot of discussion right now about 18 or 19%, and every time I ask the question, again on Facebook, why or how they're getting to that percentage, no one can answer me. I've spent so much time on the phone with DOR on this particular issue. It is only 11.7 plus the 3%. It is a great initiative that I brought this forward after the state said that they were not going to manage it. It was going to be a city managed project. If we wanted to do it, it would be on our own dime. So they since changed their mind, and that's why I moved to adopt this fee. We did adopt it. There is some concern that the 3% is going to make people not rent in Gloucester. Time will tell. We've got to go through a period of time where we're doing this to see what the negative impact, if any, is going to be on it. If anything, I see a positive impact where people may not rent short-term and rent long-term, and that puts more affordable housing back in our market for long-term rentals. Where I would use this, and again, this is...
I'm sorry, no, 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Mel, you did that to me last time, messed me up. So where I would use it, we have the YMCA project that could be coming up soon. By the time that comes around, that 3% is really going to make a difference. Another thing, our city-owned land that we've asked for an inventory on. That, when we partner with other community partners, such as Harbor Light Partners, it will go to that. So these are the things that we've got to look at. We've got to start keeping these things for our future. And the mayor can only assign that money through a vote of the city council. So we'll have multiple bites of the apple on this.
I know it's an adopted tax, something that we could have not done if we didn't have to. And I think it's one of those things that we should have waited and see if the other communities like Salem that adopted it, if it was going to impact them negatively. And if it didn't, then maybe we could have gone forward after the fact. I think that would have been an easier way of accepting the fact that we need to adopt a 3% tax or fee, as you want to call it. Some people are for it, some people are not. With the new school budget coming up and potentially being taxed on that, that would make it seem like we're being taxed twice in 1 year. So I'm not against understanding that, you know, we need to fund these things that we need for affordable housing and whatnot. But I think we just need to be a little bit responsible and conscious about those decisions. We don't need to just jump into it and raise or add on fees to people that are already trying to survive in this high-end economy. You know, I think the reason why people do Airbnb is just to supplement that extra cost of living, so they can just, you know, maybe take a vacation trip themselves, or, you know, pay for that car payment without feeling now they have to pay a little bit more into it. So that's how I feel about that. Thank you.
The next two candidates will have 1 minute each, will be Jamie O'Hara and then John McCarthy.
Thank you. This again, the housing issue, we again have to be cognizant of, do we want expansion, more traffic, more people in our city? Have we reached the pinnacle? Obviously, I've spoken about traffic. Everyone drives Washington Street, 128, with the rotaries. There's more traffic out there. Would everyone agree? Do we want more housing? I think the affordable housing aspect will take care of itself. We have certainly plenty of partners that are out there, but we as a city have to be cognizant to what you, the owners of the city, we're your representatives of what is wanted by you. Do we want more traffic? Obviously, everyone has cars. We have an ordinance in place, 1.5 cars per unit. Anyone seen a half a car out there? It doesn't exist. Most people have 2 cars. So we're looking at traffic congestion. Everyone's fighting for parking spaces downtown. It's happening in the outskirts. So this is a multi-pronged issue that we as a council need to be cognizant of. Thank you.
What I've heard is the high estimates. I think the question was, what are we going to do with the money and what could we put this towards? The high estimate that I've heard is around $30,000. We're not going to be able to build major buildings with $30,000. As I brought up in the earlier debate this week, I think it's important that we educate our seniors, and I include myself. I'm getting there myself. I think it would be an important thing that maybe we could use some of this money to have seminars on how to protect the house that you have now, how to age in place, how to put your property into a trust or properly turn it over to family members. I think that may be more of an important way to spend the money to help the seniors in this community. I talked to the Housing Authority the other day, and that's as far as I'm going to go because he said stop. And I listened to the rules.
The next 2 on this question will be Krista Carranza and then Joe Ciolino.
So yeah, following up on what you're hearing from the rest of the members here tonight, I think when you're looking at things like the Airbnb, the short-term rental impact fees, what you're also talking about is a change of industry, frankly, right? No one wanted to have a car because it was called a horseless carriage, right? So this is something that we have to enlighten, empower, we have to educate, and there's new things coming down the road. We have the chance potentially, we talked about revenue here. The chance with the Economic Development Department, I applaud them because they pursued a company called Sea Machines, which is basically, it could be the Tesla of boats, so autonomous vessels for manufacturing globally. Imagine if Gloucester was the beacon of that around the world, and that could bring in big revenue, by the way. And so when you're talking about people going out and looking at these short-term rentals, do we have the manpower? Do we have the software? Do we have the capability to analyze to make sure that we're certifying all these units appropriately? And I think that's a revenue maker unto itself, but we have to do it right and be accountable.
With the advent of Airbnbs, 2 things have happened. One is that the housing stocks in the city of Gloucester have gone down because people are choosing to rent with the Airbnb, then put it on the housing market. That's affecting us now, not in the future, now. The second thing that's happening is that I talked about Beauport and the taxes that they pay for room tax. Harborview Inn, what they pay. It's not a fair playing field if one person doesn't pay the taxes and the other ones have to. I think it's fair that they should pay their due diligence, and you know what? Little by little, the money adds up. And we're talking about that building across the street. If the city could grease the skids to make something happen for affordable housing, and they have money in the Affordable Housing Trust, that would be a place to spend it. East Gloucester Elementary School would be a place to spend it. But the field should be level, and we should tax them. I totally agree with that.
Would anyone like to add something on Airbnbs and the new tax surcharge fee thing?
Good catch. Just to clear up and share more information, I'm the one that brought this forward, so I'm well versed in it. If it's an owner-occupied building, they are exempt. If they own one property and they're renting it out and it's not attached to their owner-occupied home, they're exempt from this fee. Another thing is that the renter is paying the taxes and the fee. None of this is impacting the resident, except for in the rare case that I, in my opinion, see that somebody doesn't rent from them because of an extra 3%. And the state, in its wisdom this time, doesn't always happen, said that the only places we can spend this money is affordable housing and infrastructure. Those are the only places we can spend, and I know infrastructure is extremely broad, but the mayor has dedicated to put this towards affordable housing because that is where we're negatively impacted by this.
All right. Our fishing tradition has been handed down from generation to generation. Today, our fleet is aging and there is no new generation willing to take over. How do you see the future of Gloucester's fishing industry? And we know this is largely a federal and state problem with the regulations, but what new ideas or solutions could the City Council bring to the problem of making fishing attracting a new generation of fishermen who can actually make a living? The first three people to have 2 minutes each will be Peter Kanavu, followed by Mr. Carranza, followed by Ms. Cox.
One way to keep this heritage and generation going is looking at our school system and trying to inject these extra curriculums to our school and setting up these programs where students and people alike from this city around can go and learn and how to mend and how to build an oar and how to do maritime things that make this heritage what it is. If you talk to some of the people down at the waterfront, they'll tell you their ideas way better than mine, but I'm here to listen to them and see what they have to say. And I think that's a good starting point to keep this culture going in our great city.
Yeah, Peter's right. I think the next generation is looking at that, the next generation. And it's not about lamenting that we're losing fishing jobs per se. It's about how do we work together to evolve, respect our heritage, but understand that we need to bring in a new economy and work in different ways. But we have a lot of different opportunities, as Peter said. The GMGI is taking people that were otherwise working within Dunkin' Donuts as a vocational trade and getting either scholarships or damn near free opportunities to get training. And now they're working in labs across the greater Boston region within hospitals and Boston itself in labs. And so whether it is teaching the kids how to build the sailboats the boats again, or all the way through to the working waterfront and how we can use that innovation that I spoke of earlier, there's a lot of opportunities there to honor the fishing industry. But I think one thing I've learned about Gloucester is they understand authenticity. And so when we hear about the federal government, I don't think people felt like there was a lot of trust there when they said they were going to get support. I know people across my family that have talked about that they didn't feel like they were told the full truth. I think we have to be honest along the way every time, though, especially with the legacy of our fishermen.
As a city councilor, I would support more initiatives to do short-term business loans, especially if they added an employee. So say you're going to purchase a boat, you would come to the city, you would do a short-term business loan, and there's a tiered level for this. I know we already do short-term business loans, but I don't know that it's really geared toward the fishing industry, but it would be something that we could definitely explore. And then also a business owner that works on the water that supports the fishing industry. Short-term business loans for repairs. You've heard about our infrastructure problems on the water, but most of that is private property, And so it's hard to invest in private property. But again, if it was a short-term business loan, it would be more acceptable. Another thing is to support the local nonprofits or businesses that provide education. Maritime Gloucester is a key component in education with our schools. They do field trips. On the blackboard the other day, I saw squid dissection. I wouldn't be able to do it, but the kids seem to enjoy it. And supporting companies like GMGI. I heard that they were at the Ipswich Higher Education Fair the other night, and a resident called to tell me about it because they were so excited that Gloucester's on the map for higher education. So those are the ways that I would try to support our fishing industry with moving forward.
We're going to hear next 1 minute each from John McCarthy and Joe Ciolino.
I've been on the harbor my whole life. I started at 14 years old on the police boat. The harbor has definitely changed, but we have adapted. We don't have as many big boats, but we have still a vibrant small boat. We have a vibrant lobster fleet in Gloucester. I think that one of the ways that we could adapt is the new harbor plan that's coming up. We're starting in 2020. I think we need to create more opportunities for the fishermen to diversify. When I took my captain's class, there were a lot of Gloucester fishermen that were taking their captain's class. Anywhere you travel in Florida, New York, you see charter boat fleets. I don't see there's any reason we can't get in our new harbor plan an area that we could have charter fleets, that our local fishermen, they know the waters, they know where the fish are, they can convert to that type of an industry. And I think we have to look into a lot of those type of conversions. Thank you.
The way I look at it, and you know, the Ciolinos have been in a fishing from my grandfather, my father, my uncles and aunts. We've been a fishing family forever. The problem is, if you look at it from an economic point, most people can't make a living fishing. That's a problem. It's not that there's a lack of people that will be willing to go fishing, but for one thing, if you find a boat and all your limited days, what you can't fish for, it's a horrible thing to have to deal with. But we are reinventing. We're trying to make it through with underutilized species and the lobsters and all the rest of it. I think there'll be a new kind of fishing industry where there's not going to be as many boats that are going to be out for a week. They're going to be in and out, sell fresh, sell high, and I think that's what we need to do. I do think that we need to look at the designated port area and see what is that doing for us nowadays.
Finally, we'll hear from Jamie O'Hara and then Jen Holmgren.
Thank you again. The fishermen that we presently have that go out to sea, we need to maintain dockage for those fishing boats. They are being squeezed out by the private yachts, if you will. So we need to continue to have faith that they will continue to be able to earn a living. This issue with the fish and the quotas, that's a federal government issue. We need to work with our representatives in the federal government to make sure that the numbers are there. You talk to the fishermen, they are seeing more fish on the West Coast. The salmon numbers came out are tremendous, but we also need to be cognizant of the environmental aspects. I went out and looked at a job on Nantucket a week ago, and what I heard was not astonishing, but it seems to make sense. They don't have lobsters anymore because of the temperatures of the water. So we need to be cognizant of the environment as well to protect our fishermen. Thank you.
Fishing is our heritage and our culture, and I want to support fishing families as much as I possibly can. And I agree. We also need to take a look at the huge potential of our environment environmental nature conservation. We have several companies right on our waterfront, Ocean Alliance and GMGI and Maritime Gloucester, just to name a few, who are looking at the environmental impact on our harbor and on our sea life. We also have Seaside Sustainability, and all of these companies we need to encourage and foster their input into the community and their ability to not only contribute to our revenue, but also our resources and our potential for the future. I will also add that our harbor master is doing a terrific job taking the enterprise funds and updating the systems. Thank you.
Now that we've solved all the current city problems, I want to ask my visionary question. What do you think will be the most important issue facing Gloucester 10 years from now? And what can the City Council do today to prepare for it? I want one issue, no fair giving us a list of everything that we've already discussed. One issue per candidate. We're going to start with Jamie O'Hara, Joe Ciolino, and John McCarthy, 2 minutes each.
Thank you. Gloucester's been discovered. We need to put controls in place. I'm not trying to beat a horse, but you know, being discovered means people are coming into our city. We need to put the controls so we can continue to live our life without major frustration. Obviously, for 3 months of the year, we have the visitors that come into our city and spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. We need to provide a city which is functional for those people to be able to travel throughout our city, but we need to be able to maintain a life that isn't full of frustrations. Going to the beaches, as most of us do in the summertime, you need to have a parking space. You pay taxes. So again, putting controls in place while maintaining survival. Looking at our ordinances with development, again, the parking issue as one, just space, maintaining our green space in our city, which we so much love. So I think overall it's looking at the controls, just knowing that our city has been discovered, and trying to keep the taxpayers of our city happy, while we also accommodate the visitors into our city. Thank you.
Just one, right? I'm going to go back to our harbor. I firmly believe that is something that's going to be challenging us for years. Gloucester has somewhere around 66 miles of coastline. If you picture Gloucester and you come in by the breakwater, you have Eastern Point on the right, then you come down into the inner harbor. That's the working harbor. That's what we have to concentrate on. The designated port area has put constraints on the property owners. As you've heard, we've had buildings that have literally fallen into the water. We need to be able to preserve our fishing history, our heritage, but we also need to be able to support property owners around the harbor. The last thing I would ever want to see is condos surrounding the harbor. However, we need to come up with some alternative ways that property owners around the harbor can support their property. We can't have Gloucester Harbor falling into the water. Be that we may be some public-private partnerships. If you look at the harbor, we have 3 freezers that have probably combined about 1,000 feet of frontage on Gloucester Harbor that's not being used at all. There used to be freighters coming in this harbor every day, but when that industry turned to containers, Gloucester lost that. Now there's got to be a way we can come up with a public-private partnership to utilize that 1,000 feet of frontage on Gloucester Harbor and think about it, Jamie just talked about Gloucester's been discovered in parking and traffic issues. Well, if we started bringing more people into Gloucester via the harbor, bringing them to our downtown area, they're not going to have cars. They're going to be walking. Just, I got the stop sign, so that's something that I think over the next 10 years would be an issue.
Well, when I look into the crystal ball, I'm looking at 5 years from now, 6 years from now. A company like Varian, an up and start, you know, they're looking for a place to come. Where would we put them? We don't have, our industrial park, the majority of it is full. And we are, as a city, are not planning for the future to where to put an existing or new a park. We know we had talked about it off of Manchester when there was a road that was supposed to come off of 128 into Manchester and Condolin Park, but wherever that would be, you know, I think that had conservation problem. But I think somewhere along the line, there should be a plan in order to get these emerging companies to come to Gloucester. Because we can do everything, we can promote, we can market, but if we don't have a place to put them, and we don't have a place to take advantage of the jobs that they're going to bring to this town and to boost the economy, where are we going to put them? And that's what I think we need to study. You know, the city has a lot of land. A lot of it is clouded deeds. Some kind of an committee needs to be put together and see where we can put it. Because I believe that the strength of a community comes from what manufacturing jobs that it can provide and what type of jobs those will be. And I know we're all clinging, you know, to the fishing industry, but you know what? We have to move forward. And we need another Varian to come in here and provide probably a couple thousand jobs. And that's what I see in the crystal ball, and that's what I'd like to work with if I get elected once again. Thank you.
The next two speakers will be Krista Carranza and Melissa Cox.
So when we're talking about 10 years down the road, we're talking about another generation of people. And we're talking about young people now who will have the chance to be the leaders themselves. And are we equipping them with the tools and the resources that they need to be a success? Are we doing everything we can to make sure that that next generation is going to be well equipped for that 10 years, but 10 years beyond that, and 10 years beyond that? I think the single biggest issue perhaps that we're not talking about is respect. Right now, we have ward meetings where people are nasty with one another. Again, talking about Facebook. We need to instill some sort of fabric of who we really are. We are great people. We are authentic people, and we're going to tell you where to go and how to get there. But we have a lot of heart and soul, and we all have way more in common than we do differently. So to that end, we need to work more on diversity, smart growth, accountability, diversity. These are all part of a bigger issue with regard to talent development.
I'm going to talk about something you guys don't usually hear about, and it's post-employment benefits. It's our retirement funding, our health care for the retirees. Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. They're increasing at a much greater level than our contracts are paying people. We need to look at how we can handle this. In the next 10 years, we're going to have a lot of retirements, and we need to fund that. We are not alone in this case. It's a problem throughout the state, and right now we are doing the best we can with putting money away for these problems, but it's going to be one of those things that's going to come out of the woodwork sooner or later and bite you. And it's something that we need to really, really keep an eye on.
The last two will be Jen Holmgren and then Peter Kanavu.
I would like to talk about climate change, which we should have talked about 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. We have been talking about it in Gloucester for a very long time, thank goodness, but I mean we as a nation. Gloucester for the past 10 years has been a green community, and that's thanks in part to several city administrations before this one, and this administration keeps us going, keeps us on the right track regarding climate change. We have a municipal vulnerability preparedness grant that we are following. We've had lots and lots of meetings about it. We've got coalitions of people who are prepared and who are activists regarding what we as a city need to do to help protect all of us, including our children. I feel that if I don't do my best to help protect our city for the future, then our 9-year-old literally will not have a place to live, and I will not be able to live with myself if that's the case. Thank you.
The biggest concern for me 10 years from now is our kids. Our kids' future is the most important thing we can focus on. And working with nonprofit organizations, working with these schools and help these kids learn what social skills are essential to their future. If we can reinvest in our kids, they will become successful role models and they will give back, like I did. As a director of a nonprofit organization out of Gloucester, we work with underprivileged kids, and I tell you, it's very rewarding. We see these kids and it makes a big impact on their life, and then they turn around and give back. So I think it's very, very important that we focus on our children. That's my biggest concern, and that's why I'm here, and this is why I'm doing it. So I think if we can work together on that, I think we'll tackle a lot of goals, and I think that's very important to us. Thank you.
We're now up to the candidates' closing statements. The first two who are going to speak are Carranza, followed by Joe Ciolino.
I'll try to make mine brief, yeah, because the Patriots are on, I know. So my name is, it is, yeah. Well, thank you, I appreciate that. My name is Christy Mercurio Carranza, number 3 on the ballot. I'm asking for your vote because I'd like to think that I'm providing a fresh face of leadership to this community, and I think it's something that I want to look for the best in all of us. I want to look for how we can all play to our strengths and not our weaknesses. And I see that, and I was able to see that when I was in the mayor's office. I had the honor of being appointed as the first ever constituent services and communications directors in the mayor's office. And I see a lot of faces in the audience tonight that I'd like to think that maybe I helped out a little bit with. But it was really just to cast a light back onto you. And I think, like I said earlier in my last remark there, talking about how can we play to ideas and a vision that isn't just talking about potentially all the negatives, all the things that are costing money, but how do we have new ideas and fresh voices that could present accountable solutions? Part of why I got appointed in the comptroller's office, excuse me, is to lead a joint task force on the state level to introduce new software to tenured employees, to people that perhaps are ESL or perhaps are on the way out before retirement. We have to find the solutions that work for all of us, not some of us. We have to work for a Gloucester that works for Gloucester. And I think that if we are talking about solutions for the long term and even for the short, we have to have honest communications. We have to give ourselves the tools to empower ourselves to be a success. We have to use data. We have to use science. We have to work with our state and federal partners, certainly. But that's the administration's job. A counselor's job is to help listen to you. And that's what I promise to do, is to always be there for you, whether it's on Facebook or in the real world. I want to be an accountable voice on your behalf. So I hope that you consider me, Christy Mercurio Carranza, number 3 on the ballot, November 5th. And check your registration status, by the way.
Joe?
I'm Joe Ciolino, and lifelong resident of Gloucester. This term coming up, I've done 6 terms. My slogan is in all my campaigns have been vision, ability, and experience. And I learned a lot of the newer candidates here, are telling you what they're going to do, but I have a proven track record. I can tell you that I have always provided for the schools. I can tell you that I support the new library. I can tell you that I am always listening. When I was city council president, even if you went over your time limit, you spoke your piece. I think everybody should have the opportunity to have a city councilor that will listen. I listen. And I get some of my best ideas from the people that come in and talk to me at the store. I know how to push legislation through. I know how to lobby. I know how to get things done. I've done it in the past. I know how to work with the mayor, because you have to work with the mayor to get anything accomplished in this city. And that's the way it should be, because the city council is the legislative branch and the mayor is the executive branch, and we work together to make things happen. I know how to budget. I know how to try to get every dollar out of the budget to pay for what we need to pay for. I see a vision for the city, and it's a great vision. And we are in good shape. We've had good management in the past, and we've spent our money, whether it be the infrastructure of the CSO project, a clean harbor, clean river, and the streets, and I know people talk about the potholes, but I think everything has been an improvement. And I want to continue. I need your help. I need your vote to make it happen. Thank you.
The next two speakers will be John McCarthy, followed by Jamie O'Hara.
First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having us here tonight. I think it's an important part of the process that you're able to see us answer questions, get to know us a little bit. So I really appreciate you having the debate or forum. I thank the Cable 1623 Studios for putting this out so that people that can't be here tonight still have the ability to watch it, get to know us. And most importantly, I thank the audience for coming tonight. It's not easy to come out, especially the weather that was predicted tonight, and we have a full room. And I think that also is an important part of the process, that you get to meet us personally and see us, and thank you for coming tonight. I'm asking you for your vote on November 5th for Councilor at Large. Some of the reasons I think you should vote for me is I have a lot of experience in the city. I was a public safety employee for some 40 years. I've probably patrolled every one of your neighborhoods. I know the problems, the strengths and the weaknesses of your neighborhood. I've worked with every city councilor here. I was a department head for the last 3 years. And I think most important, I'm willing to listen to you. Anybody that has anything to say, I'm willing to listen to. May not always be able to do what, say, 50 people in this room say right now, but I can listen and I can be your voice at City Hall. So I'm asking you again for one of your 4 at-large votes. And again, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I want to thank you for participating and coming out. And hopefully on November 5th, you can encourage everyone to come out and vote. My name's Jamie O'Hara. I've been representing you as a councilor at large for 2 terms of 4 years. Prior to that, I stood up for you and every citizen in emergency services to open up our fire stations at a time when the fire stations were closed. So I care for you, care for the citizens. As a councilor at large, I am a councilor who listens and will stand up for your rights at City Hall. You can always count on me. You call me, I answer the phone, I return calls, emails, and I will continue to do that. Everyone has an issue. As a councilor at large for the last 4 years, you may have seen me recently, but the last 4 years I've probably knocked on most of your doors because everyone has an issue, whether it's a pothole on the street, a stop sign, trash, everyone has an issue, and you deserve to have representation in our city, and I will be that person for you. So on November 5th, I ask for one of your 4 votes for councilor at large. Thank you very much.
The last 3 candidates we'll hear from are Melissa Cox, followed by Jen Holmgren, followed by Peter Canova.
Being a city councilor is not easy. It takes a lot of time away from your friends and your family, a lot of research, a lot of meetings, and a lot of reading material. I do it because I want to make a difference. When I first ran, somebody asked me, "Why are you running against Ann? She's a good person." And my response was and still is, I'm not running against the person. I'm running for the position. I think it's super important that you have somebody that has your back. You might not always like my answers, but I will always give you an answer. And I will tell you why we can't do something or when we can do something if the timing's just wrong. But I will always be open and honest with you. You might not like the answer, but I will be honest with you. My slogan when I ran for Ward 2 was "Together we can do more." And we had many successful projects in Ward 2 because of that. The Burnham's Field restoration, the hotel. Recently, it was the plastic bag and polystyrene ban. These projects I can't do by myself. You can't do by yourself. It takes teamwork. The current city council works very well together, and I know we're going to have some new people on board, but I can't be at every meeting. I can't be well-versed in every topic. So it's important to work with people that you can team up with and get these things done. Working with the administration is important, but butting heads with the administration is equally important because that's where you come to a compromise. And I'm here to work to that for you. Thank you.
I'm Jen Holmgren, and I'm an incumbent counselor at large, and I want to thank everybody for coming. I'm a registered nurse. As was said, I have had over 20 years of experience in the health and human services field. I am a fourth-generation Gloucester resident. My family has a very long history here. I care deeply about this community. That care is inbred into me. My aunt is sitting in the audience. She is also a lifelong community advocate and activist and volunteer, and I have learned so much from her. I am an advocate, and I am willing to defend, and I don't like butting heads either, but I am willing to vote my conscience if that is what I believe is necessary and right, even if it is not popular. And I do agree, we have a pretty great team, both on the council and on the administration. I appreciate the faith that this community put in me. The last go-round, I am number 7 on the ballot, and I hope that I am number 1 in your hearts. Thank you.
Again, my name is Peter Kanavu. I was born here, I was raised here. I'm a son of a fisherman. I'm a board director for a nonprofit organization. I'm a union member. I represent a lot of people in this town, in this community, and I want to be that voice for that people. And I realize that you select us to serve you, not the other way around. So I'll be humbled if you elect me to be your counselor at large. I will work tirelessly. I'll do my best. I really will. I'll work hard and I'll listen to everything you guys have to say. It goes unsaid like that because I'm Gloucester made, and I think everyone here is Gloucester made as well, and that means that you make Gloucester part of your home, and I think that's important, and that's why we're all here. So please consider me. I'm number 4 on the ballot. Again, my name is Peter Kanavu, and thank you for all coming here.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Cape Ann, I want to thank the Sawyer Free Library for hosting us, the 1623 studio staff for taping the program and airing it, our candidates for participating, and all of you for very carefully listening. Congratulations, you are now informed voters. So please remember to vote in the city election on November 5th.